Take a deep breath and allow your body to settle. Let the day drift quietly behind you as we turn toward a different time. Not one of heroes or wars or grand adventures, but something slower, subtler, and far more exhausting. Tonight, we journey to the Eastern Roman Empire, better known as Byzantium, not as emperors or generals, but as bureaucrats, as scribes, as the weary, ink-stained, paper-shuffling lifeblood of an empire that never stopped documenting itself. This is not the Byzantium of mosaics and saints alone. It's a world of dim offices lit by flickering oil lamps, of scrolls stacked in quiet corners, of whispered orders and anxious eyes peering over shoulders. It is a world where precision was survival, and a single misplaced name might undo you. So rest now, and imagine yourself, not at the top of a marble tower, but deep inside it. Not in sunlight, but in the endless echo of corridors, where silence speaks volumes and a single error might cost you your future. Let us begin with what it was really like to be a Byzantine scribe. Imagine, if you will, the soft scrape of sandals across polished stone. The faint scent of ink, thick, metallic, and ever-present, mingles with the waxy tang of tallow candles that never quite burn cleanly. The air is still, and the room hums with quiet concentration. Here, in this cool, dim chamber, your day begins. Just as it ended yesterday, and just as it will repeat tomorrow. You are a scribe in the Byzantine Empire, not a poet, not a philosopher. You're not invited to court banquets, nor whispered about in marble halls. You're one of the nameless many who work behind the parchment, ensuring that edicts are copied correctly, titles are never misspelled, and the emperor's words reach every corner of the empire intact. Your hands are calloused, but not from labour in the fields. The skin along your thumb is thickened from hours of guiding quills and styluses. The backs of your fingers are permanently smudged with ink, a mixture of soot, gum, and vine black, carefully mixed in ceramic pots before each shift. The ink is unforgiving. It stains clothes, scrolls, and reputations. Your workspace is cramped. A narrow bench, a leaning desk, a stack of reused parchment scraped clean with pumice. On the surface of the desk, grooves left behind by those who came before you, scratches that mirror your own tension. The windows are narrow, placed high to prevent distractions. The light, what little of it filters through, is pale and dusty. Most days the walls close in long before the sun even rises. Outside, Constantinople breathes with life. Fishermen calling on the Golden Horn, merchants shouting in the markets of the Forum of Constantine, children chasing each other near the public fountains. You hear none of it. Here, the only sounds are the rhythmic rustle of scrolls being unfurled, and the occasional sharp clearing of a throat from a supervisor's shadowy corner. Mistakes are not tolerated. Not in this world. One misplaced accent, one letter misread, and a property grant becomes a confiscation. A military order turns into a retreat. A small, almost invisible slip might, without exaggeration, cause a war. And the consequences for you? Not a quiet correction, not a warning. Number, you may find your desk empty the next morning, your sandals placed outside the room, or worse, a sealed letter bearing the purple mark, asking you to appear before the Office of Public Discipline. So you check everything twice, 3 times. You trace the edges of each wax seal with your thumb to make sure they are unbroken. You memorize the forms, the formulas, the titles. The Byzantine system thrives on precision, and you, little scribe, are expected to embody it. The hierarchy is suffocating but invisible. You may never see the emperor, nor the generals, nor the famed eunuchs who guard the imperial secrets, but you feel their presence every time a document arrives stamped in purple. That colour alone can stop breath in your lungs. Purple ink means proximity to the throne, and proximity means risk. You're not alone in this chamber. Around you, other scribes murmur quietly, mostly in monotone. Some copy manuscripts from older sources, ensuring the sacred past is not lost. Others draft announcements, letters of reprimand, tax decrees, and court rulings. You recognize the tension in their postures, the way shoulders inch closer to ears as the day drags on. Some mutter prayers under their breath, not out of piety but out of fear or habit. Your superior is a man named Theodotos. You do not know his surname. He does not smile. He arrives before dawn and leaves after dusk, always in a clean tunic with sandals that never seem to scuff. He never speaks loudly, and yet, when he stands behind you, your hand begins to shake. Theodotos has dismissed 3 men this month, one for a missing line in a tribute inventory, one for altering the phrasing of a decree from a bishop, and one, young, quiet, for failing to affix the correct date on a receipt. That one simply never returned. His wax tablets were stacked neatly at his desk the next morning untouched. Your meals are simple: bread, olives, sometimes a thin lentil soup. You eat in the corridor or at your desk or not at all. Hunger sharpens the senses, you remind yourself, though some days it dulls the will. And yet, even in this life of repetition and rigid duty, there are moments when the world softens. Sometimes a shaft of sunlight finds its way through the window slit and falls directly on your desk, warming the parchment. Or a new scroll arrives, fresh, unmarred, smelling faintly of cedar oil. You run your hand across it and feel the slight rise of the fibres, the craftsmanship. You smile, just a little. Occasionally a visiting official will read your work aloud in front of others. He may not mention your name, but you hear the echo of your effort in his voice. For a moment, your words are part of the Empire's voice, but the moment passes and you return to your task. You write about wars you'll never see, cities you'll never visit, emperors you'll never meet. You shape the world with language and yet have no say in its direction. You are the record keeper, the witness, the silent presence in the margins of history. You are forgotten, but essential, and so the ink flows day after day, until your hand grows too old, until your eyes begin to blur, and then quietly, someone else will take your seat. Let us move now. Just a few steps outside the quiet chambers of the bureaucracy, out through narrow alleys and wider boulevards, toward the Hippodrome, the heart of public life in Constantinople. A place not of scrolls and ink, but of cheers, of colours, and on one unforgettable week in January of 532 AD, of fire. The Nika riots. The name, if you listen closely, still echoes in the stones of the city's old walls. Nika? It means conquer, or victory. It was a cheer once, a chant of excitement. But for a few days in the reign of Emperor Justinian, it became something very different, something that nearly tore the empire apart. To understand how it began, you must first understand the factions. In Constantinople, the people did not simply watch chariot races, they lived them. They pledged loyalty to racing teams the way others might to kings or gods. The Blues and the Greens, two rival factions with deep political, social, and even religious differences, these weren't just fans, these were movements. You, like most common people, might belong to one of these factions by birth or by neighbourhood. Perhaps your father cheered for the Greens, so you do too. Or perhaps you admire the wealth and prestige of the Blues, who enjoy quiet favour at court. In either case, your allegiance is not just a matter of sport, it shapes your life. The Hippodrome was more than an arena. It was a stage for the masses to speak, to cheer, to jeer, to shout grievances at the emperor. Imagine it. Nearly 100,000 voices layered atop the rumble of horses and the grinding wheels of chariots. The smell of sweat and incense, of roasted meat sold in stalls, and wine spilling from wooden cups. The banners fluttering in imperial colours, the roar of excitement, the tension of a race about to begin. But beneath the surface of the festivities something simmered. By the year 532, Emperor Justinian was trying to reform the empire's legal code and tighten control over the population. His new taxes weighed heavily on the lower classes. His appointees were resented. And when two faction members, one blue and one green, were arrested for murder during a previous riot, unrest began to stir again. On race day, the crowd gathered as usual, but instead of chanting for their factions, both sides, blues and greens alike, united under a single word: Nika. Over and over again. Not a cheer this time, but a cry. Nika, Nika, Nika. It began as an outcry for justice, but it quickly became more. The chants turned into protests, the protests into flames. Buildings were set alight. The city watch could not contain the swelling crowd. For 5 days, Constantinople burned. Imagine standing in the shadow of the Hagia Sophia, smoke blotting out the pale winter sun. Ash falling like snow. Entire districts swallowed in flame. The imperial palace was under siege. Senators fled. Monasteries barred their doors. Justinian, in his chambers, is said to have considered escape. It was his wife, the formidable Empress Theodora, who famously told him, "Purple makes a fine burial shroud," a reminder that emperors do not run. And so he stayed and plotted. While the mob crowned a new emperor from among the nobility, Justinian devised a grim response. He summoned Belisarius, his most trusted general, and ordered him to strike. On the final day of the riots, as tens of thousands filled the hippodrome once more, not to watch races but to celebrate their uprising, Belisarius entered through one of the gates, quietly, with armed men behind him. What happened next is not described in great detail by the chroniclers, and perhaps that is intentional. We are told that by the end of that day some 30,000 people lay dead. The revolt had ended, but the city would never forget. In the quiet aftermath, the fires were extinguished, the streets cleaned, the rubble swept away, the imperial court carried on, and in some dim scriptorium a clerk would have copied the orders, recorded the names, tallied the dead, with no emotion, only ink. The hippodrome was rebuilt, races resumed, but the people, they remembered, and the word Nika was never heard in that way again. Even now, if you walk the ruins of the hippodrome, you can feel it. The tension beneath the stones, the silence after the roar, the memory of a city that came within a breath of falling, not to an army, but to itself. And it all began with a cheer, Nika. As the fires of the riots faded and the city was slowly rebuilt brick by brick, Constantinople resumed its rhythm, a rhythm that pulsed not just through streets and palaces, but through sanctuaries and chancelleries alike. This next chapter in our quiet journey takes us to a curious overlap between the sacred and the administrative, between miracles and memoranda, between saints and scrolls. In Byzantium, law and faith were never truly separate. One flowed into the other like ink into parchment, and nowhere was this more evident than in the empire's obsession with holy relics, and the exhaustive imperial decrees that surrounded them. Imagine yourself now in a torchlit chamber within the great palace complex. The air is still, but thick with the smell of old incense. You sit before a wooden chest. Within it lies a fragment of bone, small, delicate, wrapped in silk and labelled with astonishing care. It is said to be the finger of a saint, or perhaps the sandal strap of a martyr. These fragments, relics, were the spiritual currency of the Byzantine world. To possess one was to hold a piece of holiness itself, a sliver of the divine, trapped in matter. And the empire catalogued them all. Each relic had to be officially recorded, authenticated, protected, and above all, controlled. Decrees were issued outlining their housing, their display, even their movement. They could not simply be given or traded like common goods. The emperor's permission was often required. You, the scribe, might be summoned to record such a decree. Your scroll would begin with florid introductions, invocations of divine order, imperial justice, and then continue into precise dry detail. The length of the reliquary, the materials allowed for its casing, the name of the monastery granted custodianship, the penalties for neglect. Sometimes you would be asked to copy miracle reports, stories of healing or visions said to have occurred in the presence of a relic. These too were filed away. They were not taken lightly. A relic that wept oil or healed the blind might soon become the centre of pilgrimage, and with pilgrimage came politics. The emperor, after all, ruled not just with armies and taxes, but with sanctity. To be seen kneeling before a relic, to be known as a protector of sacred objects, this granted authority beyond the written law. It aligned the palace with heaven. But for the bureaucrat, the interaction was less divine and more detailed. There were debates, endless ones. Which relics were authentic? Could two monasteries claim the same saint's skull? What to do when pilgrims reported conflicting miracles in rival shrines? Could the same bone, split into parts, carry the same holiness? These questions made their way into files, meetings were held, councils convened, and through it all the scribes wrote, not always understanding, but always recording. At times the lines between relic and law blurred entirely. Some imperial decrees were themselves treated as sacred, stored in reliquaries, kissed during ceremonies, guarded in the same way as a saint's cloak. The emperor's word, after all, was divinely sanctioned. His law and God's will were in theory aligned. You may now imagine a small procession, monks chanting, candles flickering, a golden casket carried through the nave of a cathedral. But instead of a holy bone, within it rests a single scroll, an imperial pronouncement, written in your hand. This intertwining of power and piety created a Byzantine world where bones dictated borders and laws protected relics, where the scent of incense lingered not only in churches but in courts, where the emperor's authority extended into tombs and shrines, and the scribes, quiet and patient, became the gatekeepers of both heaven and earth. Even now, many of these relics are lost, some scattered, some destroyed, some hidden behind stone altars or beneath monastic floors. But the scrolls remain, copied again and again, quiet, careful testaments to a world where faith was not just believed, it was indexed. We now draw near to the heart of Constantinople. Step quietly with me, not through a marketplace or barracks, but into a space where time slows and voices hush themselves without being told to. Let your breath deepen. Let your footsteps grow lighter. We are entering a place not built for speed, but for stillness. The Hagia Sophia. In Greek, the name means holy wisdom. But this vast structure is more than a name. It is a sensation, a presence, a cathedral so immense and yet so hushed that even emperors seem smaller inside it. Imagine the moment you step through its doors. The light here is different. It does not strike. It floats. A golden haze drifts through high arched windows, catching the dust in gentle motion. It paints mosaics in soft shimmer, reflects off polished marble, and disappears into the high dome above. A dome that does not so much sit atop the building as it seems to hover over it, impossibly suspended. The scent is faint but distinct. Aged incense soaked into stone, mingled with wax and the breath of centuries. You hear no music, only the quiet whisper of sandals against marble, and the echo of your own steps dissolving into the dome's immense silence. Now imagine yourself not as a pilgrim but as a court official. Perhaps you are summoned to witness an imperial coronation, or a treaty's solemn blessing. Perhaps you are merely here to observe, to note, to write, to record. To your left, under a broad archway, you might spot the marble ramp leading to the Emperor's Gallery, a hidden upper walkway that peers down upon the nave below. From there, emperors would stand unseen, listening to the hymns of the choir, watching the people they ruled over, a silent overseer, apart even when present. They say the acoustics here are perfect, that a whisper in the gallery can be heard across the nave, if you speak it just right. It is no wonder the place became known, in time, as the Imperial Whisper Gallery. Secrets have passed through this space, floating like incense toward heaven. Below, columns stretch like ancient trees, each one brought from a different part of the empire, green from Thessaly, purple from Egypt, black from the Bosporus. No two are exactly the same. All were gathered to declare, here is the centre of the world. The mosaics shine above you. Though many have faded or been altered, or hidden over the centuries, some remain. Christ Pantocrator, the Virgin and Child, saints and emperors, all rendered in golden tesserae, thousands upon thousands of tiny stones, each one placed by hand, a labour not of weeks, but of generations. But the true grandeur of the Hagia Sophia is not in any single image. It is in the quiet unity of the space, the way it feels, both infinite and enclosed, both sacred and strangely human. A place designed to lift the soul, but gently. If you linger long enough, you might hear the distant sound of chanting, perhaps a liturgy, perhaps only the memory of one. The stones here remember more than any living voice. And in this space, this great floating dome of golden silence, you feel, perhaps for the first time, the full weight of Byzantium. Not the weight of empire in its armies or tax ledgers, but the deeper weight of continuity, of belief, of beauty made permanent. This is what the empire strove to preserve, this stillness, this order, this light. When the service ends and the people begin to leave, the Hagia Sophia does not change. It remains as it was, serene, watching, waiting. And you, humble scribe or clerk, step back out into the light of day, with a quiet sense that something has passed through you, something older than your city and more patient than time. And now, as we leave behind the flickering lamplight of the scriptorium, the ashes of the hippodrome, the scented air of reliquaries, and the echoing vastness of the Hagia Sophia, take a moment to breathe. The Byzantine Empire is often remembered for its grandeur, for its golden icons, its jewelled crowns, its sprawling cathedrals and imperial intrigue. But beneath those glittering surfaces lived the quiet machinery that truly kept it alive. Not soldiers, not saints, but people like you, scribes, clerks, copyists, recorders of names, dates, rules and rituals, unseen, uncelebrated, but essential. Imagine again the rhythm of that life, the steady scratch of stylus on parchment, the routine of candles lit and extinguished, the cold bench, the warm moment of perfect handwriting, the breath held as a superior reads what you've written. the feeling of moving history forward not by making it, but by preserving it. It was not a glamorous life. It was slow, repetitive, bounded by rules and ritual. But there is a strange peace in that, a kind of dignity, to live by a rhythm older than yourself, to know that your work, though small, is part of something vast, something that stretched across continents and centuries, held together by ink and law and belief. As your eyes grow heavier now and the world around you dims, let your thoughts settle into that ancient rhythm. The empire is gone, the scriptoriums are quiet, the scrolls are brittle with time, but the memory remains of those quiet halls, those whispered prayers, those careful hands guiding the pen. Sleep now with the comfort of knowing that even in the most complicated corners of history, there were always quiet souls like yours, simply trying to do their work, one line at a time. Good night, fellow scribe, and may your dreams be steady, like the hand that once wrote Byzantium.